I recently experienced an unexpected whirlwind of events after returning from a week-long overseas journey. Shortly after I got back, my mother-in-law, Victoria, phoned me with an air of victory, claiming I had given her $41,000 that I had supposedly saved. I was baffled, as I couldn't recall having such an amount set aside. As a company jewelry designer, I do have some emergency funds in the bank, but I certainly don't keep large sums of cash at home, and my bank card was securely with me. No one else, normally, could access my bank account to withdraw such an amount. During the call, Victoria insisted, "You did give it to me, so I took it from the sideboard drawer. You guys are wealthy, it's fine." I was completely confused but didn't get a chance to clarify, as she quickly added, "Thanks for the fun, count on me next time," and then hung up. Left in shock, I wondered what she was referring to. This mystery lingered until my husband, Matteo, came home and explained the misunderstanding. However, the situation didn't settle there. Over the next month, Victoria called repeatedly. I ignored over 110 of her calls, bewildered but also annoyed by her persistence. Eventually, when she called again, her demanding tone pushed me to answer. She accused, "What do you think you're doing?" Her sharp voice filled the room from my phone's speaker. My name is Delilah, a 27-year-old busy jewelry designer. My husband Matteo, also 27, once had a stable executive assistant job, but now helps manage my growing business. When we got married, my career was just taking off. As my business expanded, Matteo bravely left his job to become my full-time business partner, helping me secure deals with renowned international brands. Despite our success, life isn't without its challenges, particularly concerning Matteo's mother, Victoria. Living alone in the family home, she perceives our lifestyle as lavish and frequently asks us for money. "You always seem to be living so luxuriously. I'm jealous," she often says. For me, attending product launches and dinners with executives is part of my job, but Victoria views these as purely leisure activities and demands the same extravagant lifestyle for herself. Her recent request was money to throw a party for a friend, assuming, once again, that we could easily afford such expenses. I may seem like I can effortlessly afford to fulfill every request for money, but the reality is far from that glamorous image. Despite what it looks like, running a jewelry design business involves hefty expenses and numerous obligations that cannot be ignored. We are not basking in luxury. Every glamorous event and fancy dinner is part of our professional commitments. Victoria, my mother-in-law, often remarks with a sarcastic undertone, "I envy you," failing to grasp the true nature of our expenditures. Although I consistently decline her monetary requests, Matteo, her son and my husband, sometimes relents and gives her money. He rationalizes that keeping her content with some financial help is a small price for peace. For him, it's simpler to just hand her some money rather than endure her disruptive demands. However, Victoria's requests only grow more frequent and extravagant, pushing both of us to our limits. Recently, she demanded a new dress for a swanky gathering she was invited to. When she visited, she tried to persuade Matteo, asking, "Wouldn't a two-piece suit be more appropriate? Everyone will be dressed up. I can't be the only one in old clothes." Despite the availability of cheaper options, what Victoria desires is invariably expensive. She also insisted on a matching handbag, expecting us to cover that cost as well. To manage her frequent demands, Matteo had previously set up a credit card in Victoria's name, advising her to use it judiciously for her expenses. Initially, she overspent wildly, prompting warnings from Matteo. Despite this, her spending habits showed no signs of moderation. Matteo then requested that she inform us before making significant purchases. She complied, albeit superficially, like the time she impulsively bought a lavish ring, apologizing only after the fact. The cost was astronomical. Frustrated, Matteo confronted her, "If you're going to spend like this, can you return the card? We can't cover all these expenses." The credit card, though issued in Victoria's name, had its bills paid by Matteo. Victoria seemed to perceive the credit card as an endless source of funds, not fully grasping that every expense charged to it was ultimately our financial burden. This continuous cycle led Matteo to a tough decision about how to handle the credit situation moving forward, as Victoria's understanding of the financial impact of her actions remained limited. We recently had to place a spending limit on Victoria's credit card due to her excessive shopping, which caused quite a stir when she discovered she couldn't pay during her last shopping trip. "Why couldn't I pay for my shopping the other day?" Victoria stormed in, visibly upset. We explained that her overspending was straining our finances, hence the reduced limit on her card. "It's still enough, right?" we assured her. Victoria, however, felt this was unfair. "Just because you three dress up and go to fancy places, how is what I'm doing any different?" she argued. We tried explaining that our attendance at product launches and parties in luxurious venues was strictly professional, but to Victoria, it appeared as though we were just having fun. Despite her initial frustration, the limit on her card did seem to calm things down somewhat. Occasionally, Victoria still expressed her grievances to Matteo during her visits, but life carried on with fewer disturbances. As the year drew to a close, an exciting opportunity arose for my career. A foreign brand manufacturer proposed expanding business by moving our base overseas. Thrilled by the prospect, I saw it as a chance to elevate my status among top-tier designers. Matteo, managing my career, encouraged taking the leap, emphasizing the rarity of such opportunities. However, considering Victoria's past behavior, we were concerned she might want to join us. "It would be wonderful to live overseas. I want to come too," she declared when we informed her about the move. We clarified that the relocation was for work purposes, not for leisure, but Victoria seemed skeptical. "You're trying to trick me. You plan to live even more lavishly there without me," she accused. Matteo patiently explained, "We are not moving there permanently. We'll return after our work concludes overseas." Despite our reassurances, Victoria seemed to fear we might leave her behind permanently. Her concerns, although unfounded, highlighted the ongoing challenge of balancing our professional advancements with family dynamics. The repetitive arguments were wearing us down. Both Matteo and I were exhausted. In an attempt to find a compromise, Matteo proposed, "Okay, we can't take you with us, but how about we pay for a week-long trip for you instead?" This suggestion was made in hopes of appeasing Victoria without further straining our patience. "Really? Are you sure?" Victoria asked, her tone mixed with surprise and skepticism. "We'll cover your flight and hotel, but you'll need to manage the rest on your own," Matteo explained. "Yay, thank you," Victoria responded, leaving half-heartedly yet seemingly satisfied with the arrangement. However, the peace was short-lived. A few days later, as Matteo was deep into the logistics for our overseas move, Victoria dropped by unexpectedly. "Hey Delilah," Matteo said that, "but I want to shop over there too. Can you give me some money?" she inquired. I reminded her, "What about the card that Matteo gave you?" knowing full well that there was a spending limit set on it. "That's the thing, Matteo finally took it away from me," she revealed. It appeared she had been reprimanded for her excessive spending and the card had been confiscated, possibly because Matteo was concerned she might misuse it with the fluctuating currency rates abroad. I explained, "I can't give you money without Matteo's approval." "But can you ask him?" "It's no use asking him, that's why I'm asking you," she persisted, but eventually left, raising her voice in frustration. During the New Year's, Victoria went on the 9-day trip abroad we had arranged for her. I assumed Matteo had somehow managed to sort out the finances for it. Upon her return, Victoria called me excitedly to share her experiences. "I'm back. It was so fun," she chirped from the other end of the phone, recounting her sightseeing and dining adventures, and adding, "I overbought souvenirs and couldn't fit them in my suitcase, so I had them shipped here. Can't wait for them to arrive." "That's nice," I replied, feeling somewhat overwhelmed by her enthusiasm. "Thanks to the money you saved up, I had a blast," she added. "Saved up money? What are you talking about?" I was perplexed. I had no recollection of such money. Sure, I had some savings for business emergencies, but that was securely in my bank account, and Victoria couldn't possibly have accessed it. "You really didn't notice. You're surprisingly oblivious," she commented. Despite her assertion, I had no memory of the money she mentioned. She claimed to have found $41,000 in our house's sideboard drawer, but why would such an amount be there? I couldn't imagine us leaving such a significant sum unaccounted for. Keeping a large sum of cash at home, especially hidden away in a drawer, was not something we did. Confused, I confronted Victoria. "I'm not sure what money you're talking about, but if you took it from our house without permission, that's theft, even if you are family. Do you understand?" Victoria, seemingly unfazed, responded nonchalantly, "That's why I'm telling you now that I used it. It's a post-factum report. I have no idea about this money, but taking and using it without saying anything is a crime," I continued, increasingly worried that it could have been funds Matteo had earmarked for a crucial business transaction. And if it was meant for an important deal, it's even more serious. While she was on her trip, our business dealings had proceeded without any financial hiccups, so the origin of this money was a mystery. Victoria, however, justified her actions with a sense of entitlement. "You two live so extravagantly, so why can't I have a little of that? Think of it as doing a favor for your parent. It's not a big deal, right?" This kind of self-entitled reasoning alarmed me. It's one thing to ask for help from her son and his wife, but entirely another to nonchalantly admit to taking money without permission. "I'm glad you enjoyed your trip," I replied, still puzzled. "I'll ask Matteo about the money when he gets back." Victoria seemed confident that Matteo would understand, claiming, "After all, I'm his only mother, and $41K isn't much to him." "I'll pass the message along," I said, astounded by her lack of awareness. With that, she ended the call, leaving me bewildered about the $41,000. Was it possible we had such a large amount at home? That evening, Matteo returned with a concerned expression. "Delilah, do you know about the money I left in the drawer?" he asked. 10 days ago, he had withdrawn it from his bank account for an urgent payment. "It's gone now." "Keeping such a large sum in a drawer, didn't you think it was careless?" he questioned, needing the cash immediately for a transaction. "No, today Victoria called, saying thanks for the $41K and that she had a blast with it." I didn't understand what she meant, I responded. It turned out it was Matteo's money after all, but I was still unsure what the payment was for. "Hey, if it wasn't for a business payment, what was it for?" I asked, trying to piece together the situation. "We've been conducting our financial transactions through bank transfers for quite some time now, so the presence of such a large sum in cash at home was puzzling to me. Although I realized it was Matteo's money, I still couldn't grasp the entire situation. So, Mom took it without saying. Then it's her fault, I concluded, seeking further explanation from Matteo. Matteo then started to unravel the reason behind leaving such a significant amount of cash at home. He had recently limited Victoria's credit card amount after discovering she had been secretly accumulating debts through consumer finance cards and other credit cards she had opened without our knowledge. When Matteo found out about her mounting debts, he confiscated all her cards and prepared cash to settle her debts. He planned to make payments directly to the creditors because giving cash to Victoria would likely lead her to spend it irresponsibly. Matteo explained his decision to use cash instead of bank transfers. "A bank transfer would leave a record in our accounts," he said. He wanted to avoid excessive records that might complicate our bookkeeping or raise questions among our business partners. Hence, he chose to pay in cash, handling it personally. Supporting Victoria's overseas trip was akin to a parting gift since, after our impending move abroad, we wouldn't be as readily available to assist her as before. That explained the cash, but the future seemed uncertain. What will become of Victoria now? I pondered. Debt collection notices and payment demands will probably start coming in soon, but since she spent it herself, there's nothing we can do, Matteo remarked with a hint of resignation. A month passed, and as I busied myself with packing for the move, Victoria's calls became increasingly frequent. Matteo advised me to ignore her calls, but the sheer number of them, nearly 110 calls, almost every day, was hard to disregard. Just as I was reflecting on this, my phone rang again. Hesitating at first, I missed the call, but it soon rang again, and this time, I answered. "Why aren't you answering my calls? I've called so many times." Victoria's voice conveyed a mix of desperation and frustration. "I'm sorry, I've been busy with moving preparations." "What's wrong?" I asked, trying to remain calm and listen to her concerns. "It's not just what's wrong, they are asking for money payments almost every day. It's too much." "What about Matteo? Have you contacted him?" I inquired. "He seems to be blocking my calls. I can't get through to him at all. Delilah, you're my only hope now. Please help me," she pleaded, her voice filled with urgency. I was taken aback to learn that Matteo had taken such a drastic measure with his own mother. If he had used the money he had set aside to settle Victoria's debts directly, perhaps this troubling situation could have been avoided. Now, Victoria was swamped with collection letters from finance companies and consumer lenders. The calls from collectors were relentless, and she seemed utterly powerless to manage them. This was a scenario I had only seen play out in TV dramas, not something I ever expected to witness in our lives. "I'll mention it to Matteo, but I can't say what he'll do. A mother in trouble, it's a son's duty to help, right? Please ask him for me," Victoria pleaded at the end of our call. However, with our business expansion overseas looming, funds were tight, and we couldn't afford to assist Victoria further. Besides, it was her own mismanagement that led to this predicament. She had squandered the money Matteo had painstakingly gathered to pay off her debts on a lavish trip instead. When I relayed Victoria's request to Matteo, after he returned home exhausted, he dismissed it rather coldly. "I had planned to sort things out before we left, but she wasted the opportunity herself," he stated flatly. True enough, the money was initially intended to clear Victoria's debts. Her choice to use it for extravagant personal enjoyment left no room for excuses. Despite her continued attempts to reach us, I, following Matteo's lead, set her number to block. Although I wished we could offer some help, being Matteo's mother, there was nothing more I could do if he decided to cut off support. Meanwhile, the day of our move overseas drew closer, and I had to focus on packing. Our home was still cluttered with belongings yet to be boxed. Amidst this, I discovered that Victoria had ended up selling her house to pay off her debts. In addition to the $41,000 Matteo had earmarked for the debt repayment, it turned out she had hidden even more liabilities. The total amount was so vast that even after selling her land and house, she couldn't cover it all. "Our family home, it's gone. Are you okay with that?" I asked Matteo, noticing the melancholy in his demeanor. "How can I be okay?" "But there's nothing we can do," he responded, his voice tinged with sadness. Losing the house where he grew up must have felt like a significant loss. Having lost my parents' house early in life, I understood the profound sense of loneliness that comes with losing one's family home. But unlike my situation, Matteo had lost his childhood home due to the actions of his living mother, a circumstance I couldn't even begin to fathom. The emotional toll on him was palpable as we prepared for our new life abroad, leaving behind not just a house, but a myriad of unresolved feelings tied to it. Victoria is now living in a modest apartment, struggling to pay off the remaining debts with a part-time job. At her age, finding work is undoubtedly challenging, and I do feel a twinge of sympathy for her situation. However, it's important to recognize that her current predicaments are the direct consequences of her past spending habits. Even in old age, it's crucial to take responsibility for one's actions. Meanwhile, our business venture overseas is flourishing. The move has not only broadened our horizons, but also attracted inquiries from other brands, with offers coming from places I never expected. This level of interest and opportunity is something I couldn't have envisioned back home, and I'm grateful for every bit of it. However, the pace is relentless. I'm so engulfed in work that finding time to sleep is a challenge, let alone exploring our new surroundings. Mateo is equally engulfed in managing everything, which leaves little room for personal time. With our current lifestyle, the thought of starting a family seems more like a distant dream. I often find myself pondering this as I gaze out at the bustling cityscape of this foreign city through the window. The vibrant life outside contrasts sharply with our hectic, enclosed lives, filled with responsibilities and unrelenting schedules.